Dear friends, when we look at ourselves as teachers of the 21st century, 21st century demands certain skills for teachers. For example, ways of thinking, tools for working, ways of working, living in the world, etc., are so important for every teacher to look into. And ways of thinking includes creativity and innovation, critical thinking, learning to learn. And tools for working includes information literacy and ICT literacy. Ways of working, that means collaboration and communication. And collaboration is so important for every teacher today. And living in the world includes citizenship, cultural awareness, and personal and social responsibility. And if you carefully look at the National Education Policy 2020 of India, it talks about these 21st century skills as part of its key elements, key principles of the policy. Critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, information literacy, cultural awareness, personal and social responsibility, collaboration, communication, etc., has been stressed in the National Education Policy 2020. Now, when I was looking at the National Education Policy, I also realized that based on this background of the 21st century skills, the policy talks about empowering our teachers to face these 21st century challenges. And that's why the policy talks about teacher empowerment, continuous professional development, and certain qualities and criterion have been suggested to us as teachers. Now, when I was looking at the teachers, who is our model teacher for us today to imitate? And I found for us none other than Jesus himself is a perfect teacher. And the question we can ask is, what made Jesus of Nazareth such a profound teacher? How Jesus secured the listeners' attention, made profound contact with them, and applied scripture and contemporary concerns to reach his goals. I think it's so important for us to look into. The influence of Jesus was so much. Even after 2000 years, we are still holding on to his wonderful teachings. So, my dear teachers, we identify 10 areas of Jesus, 10 areas where he can be a role model for us. That is, Jesus taught with authority and authenticity. His teaching was unique. He taught at various places to various people. He taught with compassion and care. He could teach scholars and common people with same passion. He taught by placing people first, what we call today a person-centered education, etc. He challenged his followers, taught with authority and purpose. He taught his disciples to talk to God. And ultimately, love was the core of his teaching. We cannot forget that Jesus was always stressing on love. Now, when we look at the contemporary situation, especially the pandemic, Pope Francis taught us that, like the disciples of Emmaus in the Gospel, We were caught off guard by an unexpected turbulent storm. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed. All of us called to row together, each of us in need of comforting the other. In that light, let us look at our teachers. What can we learn from Jesus as a teacher? If we recognize our calling to teaching, what better way to gauge our teaching ability than by finding out how Jesus taught and carrying that over into the classroom today? That's my attempt. And when we look at Jesus' teaching, he was a master teacher, no doubt. Throughout the Gospels, we encounter a variety of teaching episodes, learning experiences. His own, the 12 apostles, the disciples, and many other bigger groups and smaller groups and single individuals. Jesus was natural and authentic in his dealings with people. The focus of his teaching was, he always oriented his teaching to actively engage his students in the learning experience. To do this, he focused on thinking, knowing, understanding, being, and doing. I think these points our teachers must remember. Thinking, knowing, understanding, being, and doing. These 5 areas are so important for us. And what do you mean by thinking? When teaching, Jesus would often ask his students, "What do you think?" In introducing the story of the Good Shepherd, for example, he extended an invitation to consider carefully the meaning of the story. He also told the parable of the sower. You remember that story? In that parable also he asked, "Do you understand what it is?" Another area is knowing. For Christ, knowledge was so important. When the Sadducees presented him with an impossible riddle of the woman who consecutively married 7 brothers, Jesus replied, "You are mistaken, because you do not know the scriptures or the power of God." Throughout his teaching, Jesus emphasized the importance of knowing the truth and of developing an experiential knowledge of God. Understanding is another area. Knowledge cannot stand alone. Christ also viewed understanding as crucial. That's why, telling the parable of the farmer planting his field, he stated, "The one who received the seed that fell on good soil is the man who hears the word and understands it." At the close of his ministry, after washing the disciples' feet, Jesus asked them, "Do you understand what I have done to you?" Another thing is knowing. For Christ's knowledge was so important, as I said, as also being is so important for Jesus. On one occasion, an expert in the law asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus told the story of Good Samaritan and then redirected the lawyer's question to a matter of being. Who among the 3 was the neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? Jesus also stressed always on the importance of being merciful. That's why Pope Francis once again highlighted us the merciful aspect of Jesus. Jesus said also, "Be shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves." He also taught us the importance of doing. Christ highlighted the concept that knowledge should inform practice, that one is should be evident in what he or she does. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them, Jesus says. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. So the importance of doing along with being and understanding, knowing, is so important for Jesus. And I think these are the important things we teachers must cultivate. And finally, what are the strategies Jesus used in his teaching? They are, for example, illustration. He portrayed wonderfully the examples he wants to communicate to people. Told a number of stories. More than 40 stories are recorded in the Bible. His strategy was problem solving. In the modern sense, we talk about 21st century skills. One of them is problem solving skills. And Jesus was very much into it. And he also gave examples, comparison and contrast. A lot of comparison, a lot of contrast. Humility, another aspect. We teachers must be humble and make our students also humble by our own role modeling. That's why Jesus, his own life was an example. Historical events, he brought plenty of examples. Anomalies, emphasis through hyperbolic languages, analogies, tangible objects, enacted teaching, active learning, questions, analysis and reasoning, collaborative learning, repetition with variety. Several of these things Jesus used in his teaching as a strategy to reach out to people, to convince them. And therefore, when we look at today's teaching, all of us at the 21st century skills, when we look at to be better teachers, to reach out, to teach them collaborative learning, etc., I think we have a wonderful teacher among us to look up to. And he always understood his students. He tried to understand them. And therefore, we teachers also should be understanding, knowing our students. And finally, Jesus always found himself in the classroom in teaching, the context of joy. He communicated joy, invitation to success, tenderness and sympathy. Always his attitude was one of tenderness, motherly, at the same time sympathetic, humility, conscience of the context, personal association with people. What we call today is called cura personalis, care of each individual. He held children in high regard. You know, all through the Bible, let the children come to me. Held children as the center of his teaching. He valued the marginalized people, the Samaritans, Samaritan woman, the lepers, the weak people. You know, he always valued the marginalized people. And he always stressed on the centrality of prayer. Whenever he got time, he went alone to a lonely place to pray, to get the strength. I think as teachers, we can look up to Jesus. A lot of things we can tell about Jesus. In a short video like this, we can't explain everything. But remember, in the context of the 21st century skills and in the context of the NEP 2020, when we stress on teachers too much, we can look up to Jesus as the role model for teachers. Let us imbibe the qualities, the strategies, and his ways of teaching. as part of our teaching strategies and methods. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.